Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, my name is Nabilah Shaviti Zidin from R3B. Today, I'm going to dive into something that many people are curious about, fresh graduate salary. Now, I'm going to talk about the article that I have been researching. This one is a simplified version. Okay. Despite many concerns about low graduate wages in Malaysia, national statistics actually show a more balanced picture. Some degree holders, especially those in the public sector and non-STEM fields, may begin with salaries around 2,250 to 3,000 ringgit. However, data from DOSM shows that the median graduate salary in 2023 was about 4,409 ringgit, which matches closely with reports from My Future Jobs and Perkeso. This suggests that the labour market is generally fairer and more competitive than what people might hear. Lower wages are mostly found among graduates in oversupplied non-STEM areas such as business administration, art education, and social science. This highlights a mismatch between the number of graduates and the demand in the labour market. To address this, more focus should be begin to target upskilling, reskilling, and stronger partnership between industry and education. Skills like digital literacy, analytic thinking, and training in high-demand fields such as digital technology and green economy and advanced manufacturing can help graduates become more employable and resilient in their career. While many businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises, face sustainability challenges, cutting wages across the board is not the answer. Instead, performance-based pay, government initiative, and labour market reforms can create a system where both employer and Malaysians' highly educated workforce benefit fairly and sustainably. Now, for introduction, the article stated about the issue and graduate salaries in Malaysia and how the reported data may not fully reflect the real situation in the job market. In the article, it is explained that while some graduates complain about the low starting salaries, national statistics show a more balanced picture, with average salaries being higher than more commonly assumed. Based on the article, it is important to analyze graduate salaries in specific areas to understand the situation more clearly.
So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Adil Oman bin Hasbullah from R3B. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about problem statement about our assignment. For our assignment, we decide to focus on the issue of fresh graduate salaries. As a student and resident in JKTM Redang, we noticed that many fresh graduates face challenges when it comes to their starting salaries. This is an important issue because salary plays a big role in the financial stability of graduates right after completing their studies. To understand this matter more clearly, we decide to collect data specifically from fresh graduates in the Tangkak area. By doing so, we are able to get more realistic picture of the situation in our own community, rather than relying only on general statistic or assumption from other places. Through this study, we aim to identify salaries pattern of fresh graduate, whether the income is sufficient, fair, or if there are significant gaps that need attention. So in conclusion, the purpose of this problem statement is to highlight why we are studying the issue of fresh graduate salaries in Tangkak. It helps us deeper insight into the real situation faced by fresh graduate in our area. Okay, so after I explained the problem statement earlier, let's now move on to three key elements of the SMOC study, which are population, variable and sample. First, let's talk about population. The population refers to larger group that we want to study as a whole. In our case, the population consists of all fresh graduate in Malaysia. Ideally, if we had unlimited time and resource, we could collect data from every single fresh graduate across the country. But of course, that we would be very impractically and costly. This is why we use sample. Sample is smaller group that represent the larger population for this mock study. Our sample is fresh graduate living in the Tangkak area. By narrowing it down to this specific group, it becomes much more realistic and manageable for us to collect accurate data. Finally, we have the variable. The variable is specific aspect that we want to measure or analyze. In this study, the variable is monthly salary of fresh graduate. This means we are focusing on understanding salary level, whether they are low, moderate or high, based on the data that we collected from our samples. So in conclusion, the population is all fresh graduate in Malaysia. The sample is fresh graduate around Tangkak, and the variable we are studying is the monthly salary. This structure make our research more systematic, focused and easier to interpret. As for the salaries fresh graduate data, we use Excel to collect data randomly. So as you can see, the value are all in Ringgit Malaysia, ranging roughly between RM1,500 ringgit to 2,499 ringgit. Instead of entering this number manually, we use a simple Excel function to generate them randomly. The formula we use is equal, then between 1,500 ringgit, comma 2,499 ringgit. This formula automatically generate random numbers between 1,500 ringgit and 2,499 ringgit. Each time the sheet is refreshed, we apply this formula across all the cell in our table to create and complete set of random data. This method is very useful for testing and simulation because it allows us to quickly create realistic sample data within a specific range. Once the data was generated, we could proceed our calculation and analysis. So that's how we prepared our raw data for this assignment.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Haziq Himayatullah bin Fizam, and today I will be presenting the data presentation and analysis part of our study on the salaries of fresh graduate in Tangkak. To begin with, our group first collected raw data from fresh graduate around the Tangkak area. We focused on their month salaries as the main variable of this study. This data was then organized and entered into Excel, where we performed several statistical analyses. Before going into the graph, let me explain how we organize the data we create at a frequency table, which is very important in statistics because it groups individual data into classes, making it easier to analyze and interpret patterns. From the frequency table, we could see how many respondents fall into each salary range. For example, we had groups such as 1,800 to 2,000 ringgit, 2,000 ringgit to 2,200 ringgit, and so on. By arranging the data this way, we can immediately identify which salary range are the most common and which are less frequent. This table gave us the foundation to move forward with our graphical presentation. Next, we drew the histogram, which is a bar chart based on the frequency table. This histogram makes it easy to see the distribution of salaries. For the axis Y, we use frequency, and for the axis X, we use lower boundary. The tallest bar shows the most common salary range, which is, in our case, is around 2,300 ringgit to 2,400 ringgit. This also means the histogram helps us identify the mode, which is the salary range with the highest frequency. So from the histogram, we know that the mode from our data is about 2,249 ringgit 50 cents per person. Then we prepared the Ogilvy graph, also known as the cumulative frequency graph. Because why? Because axis Y we use cumulative frequency and axis X we use upper boundary. The OGIF is useful because it allows us to estimate the median salary and to see how data accumulates across the salary range. From the OGIF, we found that the median salary is about 2,099 ringgit 50 cent. This means half of the graduates earn below 2,019.5 cent, while the other half earn above it. The shape of the OGIF also shows us how salary gradually increase across the sample, but it remains concentrate within the lower ranges. After that, we also analyze the data in its ungrouped form using Excel formula. Here, we calculate three main measures of central tendency: mean, average salary, which came out to about 2,000 ringgit; median, which I mentioned earlier, around 2,019.5 ringgit; mode, which is the most frequent value or range, found between 2,300 ringgit to 2,400 ringgit. These three values are quite close to each other, which show the data is not very spread out. Most graduates earn within a few hundred ringgit of each other, which indicates a relatively consistent salary level in this area. Formula in Excel for ungrouped data. For mean, we use equal to average B19 K28, because B19 and K28 is about the columns and row in our Excel. For median, we use equal to median. For the mode, we use equal to transpose mode.multi MULT. For variance, we use equals to var.s. For standard deviation, we use STDEV. And all of that is same B19 and K28.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Abbas bin Abdul Halim. I'm from R3B. Now I want to bring some presentation about group data, Excel. Alright, introduction of data. This is the salary data of employees in the form of a frequency distribution. The salaries are divided into range. For example, RM 1,500 to 1,599, RM 1,600 to RM 1,699, and so on until RM 2,400 to RM 2,499. Each range has a number of employees, which we call the frequency. Next, important columns. First thing first, midpoint X, the middle value of each salary range. For example, for RM 1,500 to RM 1,599, the midpoint is RM 1,549.50 cent. Lower boundary and upper boundary. The lower and upper limits of each class. For example, for the range RM 200 to RM 2,000 to RM 2,099. Lower boundary equal to 1,999.50 cent, and upper boundary 2,099.50 cent. Fx, the product of frequency and midpoint. Cumulative frequency, the accumulated total of frequency up to a certain class. X squared and Fx squared, used for calculating variance and standard deviation. Alright, next I want to bring a steps to calculate important columns. First, midpoint. Formula, add the lower class limit with the upper class limit, then divide the answer by 2. Example, for the class RM 1,500 to 1,599, add 1,500 with 1,599, which equal 3,099. Divide 3,099 by 2, and the midpoint is 1,549.50 cent. After that, lower boundary and upper boundary. To find the lower boundary, take the lower class limit and minus 0.5. To find the upper boundary, take the upper class limit and add 0 at 0.5. Example, for the class RM 2000 to RM 2099, lower boundary is 2000 minus 0.5, which equals 1,999.50 cent. The upper boundary is 2,099 at 0.5, which equals 2,099.50 cent. Fx, frequency times midpoint. Multiply the frequency with the midpoint. Example, if the frequency is 5 and the midpoint is 1,549.50 cent, then Fx is the 5 times 1,549.50 cent, which equals 7,747.50 cent. Next, we go cumulative frequency. Add the frequency step by step from the first class until the last class. Example, if the first frequency is 5 and the second frequency is 8, the cumulative frequency for the first class is 5. For the second class, add 5 with 8 and the cumulative frequency is 13. Continue the same process for the next class. X squared, midpoint squared. Multiply the midpoint with itself. Example, if the midpoint is 1,549.50 cent, then X squared is 1,549.50 49 and 50 times. Lastly, fx squared, frequency times midpoint squared. Multiply the frequency with the value of midpoint squared. Example, if the frequency is 5 and the midpoint squared is 2,400,000, then fx squared is 5 times 2,402,000, which equals the 12 million.
So from the calculations, we can interpret that the mean gives us a general idea of the average salary. The median helps us avoid the effect of extreme value, and it's confirmed that the midpoint of salary is just above 2,000 ringgit. The mode highlights that some graduates are able to secure slightly better paying job in the range of 2,300 ringgit and 2,400 ringgit, although this is the less common. By combining all these tools, frequency table, histogram, OGIF and ungroup analysis, we get a complete and balanced picture of the salary situation.
Alright, next, I will explain about variance and standard deviation from the data we calculated. First, let's look at the variance. Variance is used to measure how spread out the data is from the average. The formula we use is sigma squared equal to sum fx squared over sum f minus sum fx over sum f squared. From our calculation, the value of sum fx squared over sum f is 4,098,997.25 cents, while sum fx over sum f is 4,010,006.25 cents. After subtracting, the variance is RM88,691. This shows that there is a spread or variation of about 8 RM88,000 squared in the salaries of fresh graduates in Tangkap. In conclusion, while the average salary is around RM2,000, the standard deviation of RM297 shows that salaries are quite consistent and not too widely spread from the mean.
Okay, now let's move on to the findings. From the data collected in Tangkap, we found that the average salary for fresh graduates is around 2,000 ringgit. This means most fresh graduates in this area are starting their career with a pay that is close to this amount. The median salary is also around 2,020 ringgit, showing that half of the graduates earn below this value and half earn above it. The most common salary range, which is mode, is a bit higher, between 2,300 ringgit to 2,400 ringgit, which tell us that some graduates are able to secure slightly better paying jobs compared to the majority. Even so, the differences between graduate salaries are not very wide, with most still staying within a few hundred ringgit of each other. When we look at the histogram and OGIF, they clearly show that the majority of graduates fall within the lower salary range. This reflects that opportunities in smaller towns like Tangkap are most limited compared to the bigger cities. Comparing this national statistic, there is a clear gap. While national data reports average graduate salaries above 400 ringgit, the reality in Tangkap is much lower. This shows that location and job market opportunities strongly affect how much a fresh graduate can earn. Overall, the findings suggest that the fresh graduate in Tangkap face lower starting salaries compared to the national average, which may influence their career growth and financial stability in the future.
In conclusion, our study shows that fresh graduates in Tangkap generally earn around RM2,000 as their starting salary. This amount is much lower compared to the national average of more than RM4,000 as reported in official statistics. The result highlight that salary levels can be very different depending on location, with smaller towns usually offering lower pay compared to big cities. This means that while graduates in Tangkap can find work, their income may not be enough to match the rising cost of living or to build long-term financially security. Therefore, fresh graduates may need to improve their skills, seek higher demand industry, or even look for job opportunities outside their local area in order to earn better salaries and have stronger career growth. That's that from me. Assalamualaikum. Bye bye.